views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
She's an award-winning author, artist, performance. She does performances, cultural activist with a career that spans over 50 years. And with her strong cultural identity, she still performs and lectures about poetry, music, black art, as well as culture. She's penned songs that were performed by the late, great Nina Simone. And today, she joins me in studio. Find out who she is on this edition of Perspectives.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And welcome to Perspective. She has penned songs that were performed live by the late, great Nina Simone and has released several albums of her own. She's written several books, including one titled Cornrows, which Essence Magazine calls a gem. She's also her own cable television talk show host of Ancestors House, which airs on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Her accolades and accomplishments would take the entire show to a list. But guess what? Today she's joining me here on Perspectives to share her life and a little bit about what she's done throughout the years with us. I'm pleased to have author, songwriter, activist, Miss Nana Camille Yarborough on the show with us, and good to have you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. It's great to be here.
A pleasure and an honor. A pleasure and an honor. So talk to us a little bit about you. Obviously, down through the years, you've had a lot of history.
A lot of it, yes.
A lot of experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you've taken it and you've actually taken it to literary form, and you've shared it with many audiences. And so I want to get a little bit about who is Nana Camille Yarborough for somebody who doesn't know.
For somebody who doesn't know. There's a lot. I've been here for many years. I started when I was in my teens discovering that I had gifts as an artist. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, which is in the news today for the many murders and violence that's there. But that violence and those murders, it's not limited to Chicago. I have to state this. It's across the country that people of African ancestry in particular are going through this kind of stress and strain and challenge. And so part of my work has always been to focus on my community and do what I can do to bring some light, to bring some lessening the stress. And so I've used my work to do that, first as a dancer, and then working with the great Catherine Dunham Company. I don't know if you know of that company. What Alvin Ailey is today, it was much more. It was Alvin Ailey Plus, because it was a company that went deep into our culture and helped us as people of African ancestry find out who we are and enjoy it and say, wow, I didn't know we did that. You know, I don't know we created tango. I don't know we created all these dances. I don't know what all of these contributions to Broadway, but you learn that and you learn self-respect. So that was my first major school. I was with that company for about 5 years, traveling all over the world. And then came back to Chicago and said, okay, New York, I'm ready for New York. So if anybody's ever ready for New York when they come here.
Big transition.
Big transition. But I had all that experience theatrically, so that when I did arrive in New York and auditioned for shows, everybody was looking. If you were from the Dunham Company, they wanted you because they knew that you were flexible, that you could do many kinds of dance, and that you had the experience of being on that stage at the highest level. So the first Broadway show I went into was called Kwamina. It was a pseudo-African show. Agnes DeMille, who was from the DeMille family from Hollywood, was the choreographer. And that was a whole nother story right there about where choreographers get their material. and how when they come to our community, it's like a well. You know, they come and they take and they take. So the cast members were giving a lot of what we knew from our culture. I was asked, I and some others were asked by the choreographer, show me some of what you did in the Dunham Company. And I said, what? Are you kidding? No, yeah. But anyhow, my life's work is to bring some light on the story of African people.
And when you talk about the story of African people, obviously a rich history,
Yes.
a rich culture.
Yes.
Something I talked about here on the show a lot is the fact that somewhere along the line, our history, our culture takes a backseat. The history isn't always told right.
Absolutely.
And it relies on people who look like us,
Yes.
sound like us, to be able to tell it. Right, us. And you've been effective in doing that.
Yeah.
Talk about sharing your work and being that songwriter and that poet. What has been some of the fabric and the foundation for you?
It's so rich. The thing is, if you don't know your story, you don't know how powerful you are or how much you have contributed to the world as it is today. And so that discovery, first I started research. I was starting at home. One of the first songs I wrote, it was on my first album, was called But It Comes Out Mad. And why did I write that? Why am I talking about something came out mad? What was it? It was an introduction to the problems in our community. At our dinner table, my father came from Alabama with all of that racism that he experienced there. But he wanted to do something. He told us always, do better. Do better than this, okay? Even though he had been wounded in all kinds of ways, my mother said, if there's a problem, find out why. Don't just react. Don't just respond. Don't just go off. It's not about getting drama all the time. It's find out why the problem exists and then change it. And so that was my first lesson, and on my first album, I wrote the song, But It Comes Out Mad, because frequently when people of African ancestry speak to one another, it comes out mad. We're carrying with us so many wounds that, you know, I was told when I was doing a radio programming for Imhotep Gary Bird, I was his frequent guest host. One of the sisters who worked there said, look, women, we can't get along. We can't work together. And I said, why not? Why can't women work together? Well, and went to proceed to see that we couldn't work together. But those kinds of things we have to overcome. And that's just where the females are concerned. We carry a lot of wounds from the past. And because we've had to survive, our focus has been on getting better, getting a job, supporting this, finding a job, going to school. And much of the time, we didn't look at ourselves. We didn't examine our own strengths or weaknesses. And so as a result of that, we kept stumbling. We go so far, and then those things like we can't get together would pull us back. And so my job was to explain why it came out mad. So I gave it historical feet. Why was my father angry the way he was? Why did he go off like that? I had said, why? This is Daddy, and he loves us. And yet, what's wrong? And then I began to look around in my neighborhood, and I saw my neighbors doing the same thing. And so I had to say, there's a reason. And that's where I started my research. So when I came to the larger world, I understood it better. And I also understood the joy of the culture. South side of Chicago. In Chicago, there are alleys. See, you have your street, then you have the building and the backyard, and in the backyard there's alleyways, and they connect all of the neighborhood. And at that time, now this is before TV, excuse me, we had vendors who would travel through those alleys selling vegetables, and they sang. I got sweet corn, I got black-eyed peas, and we're in our house, and you hear these, oh, Mama, the vegetable man is here. And she would go and she'd listen to, she'd tell us, bring me some black-eyed peas, or bring me even watermelon. They were singing those songs. So that was a kind of a cultural thing that brought the whole community together. The children and the parents, the mothers, the fathers. There was an Iceman. So everything was one-on-one. Iceman would come with the big thing on his leather thing, and he had that piece of ice on his back, and he'd come up the stairs. So it was a whole world that brought us together more.
I want to take a quick break and come back and talk a little bit about hand-me-downs. And you'll understand about these hand-me-downs in just a few minutes.
Yes.
Nana Camille Yarborough is our guest here in the studio. Why don't you stay with us? We're coming right back right after this.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Hey, it's Ava, and this is Tess from Do Your Selfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old pile of t-shirts.
It's not garbage, it's actually a new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Adopting a new pet is a rewarding experience. And shelter pets make super pets. Your new best friend will steal your heart, bring you happiness, and enrich your life for years to come. You can make a difference in the life of an animal. Adopt and bring home a shelter pet today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science. After that, I'm going to get my law degree. Then I'm going to come back to Detroit, boost the economy, become the mayor or something, try to make the situation better for other people. I feel like I owe it to the city. I'm determined. It's going to happen. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Back here on Perspectives, pleased to be joined by our very special guest, Nana Camille Yarborough. And she's been sharing with us a little bit about the work and the background and the foundation for how she writes and where she gets her material from. And she's got something new, talking about hand-me-downs. And I want to get into that in this segment because that's pretty powerful of itself. It brings Chicago to the whole wide world.
Absolutely. That's what I'm writing about right now. It's a book which brings in the hand-me-downs, the environmental hand-me-downs. That's what you're born into. Okay? Then there are the biological hand-me-downs, which involve spirituality. So that is the thing that really saves you and gives you some direction. And so it was rough at that time when I was growing up. We didn't have a lot of money, and it was racism. Racism is bad today, but it was even worse then. And so that's the environment in which I was born in my community. I had to deal with that. But I had also that inborn hand-me-downs from ancestors, from the great people that we have come from. The strengths, the insight, the little voice that speaks to you. Right. It says you don't do this, do that, okay?
Still speaks today.
It still speaks. To me, that's ancestral coming down, speaking and guiding us. So I had to use both of them. I had to use the inborn and what our family told us. They raised us. They didn't just throw us out there and we grew in the street. Unfortunately, that's what happened to a lot of our people now. So they raised us, and one of the things they used to say, a hard head makes a soft behind. Do you understand what that means? And also there were other things that they told us. And we also had music. We had the blues, which I quote often. One of the blues songs said, every closed eye ain't sleep. Be careful. If you think that people are not paying attention, they are paying attention. That's one way of interpreting. Every closed eye, if somebody's just being around, talking. They're looking at everything. They're seeing you. They're checking you out. And also, if somebody's passed on, their spirit is still here.
Share with me a little bit more. We were talking before the show started about the black belted community, and how that's impacted. Share with us because you were sharing some very powerful stuff here.
Most of us in the North came from the South, from after enslavement, after the Civil War. So we migrated, and most of the people in Chicago are from Alabama, Mississippi, and where we had been victims of racism. My father had to be in the field. He went to school for 3 months, and that was it. The rest of the time was working for the system at a little pay, and his father too. So all those people came to Chicago. They came to Detroit. They came to other places, and we were segregated. We were forced to live in certain districts, and that was called the Black Belt. You couldn't, if you went into another neighborhood, your life was at stake, seriously. Right. Because one of my brothers did, he got a job, and he had this little machine. He was selling ice cream, and he was on the bicycle, on the wagon, and he dared to go into this other neighborhood, and they attacked him. He came back bloody. But in that neighborhood, those who had education, there was a man upstairs who had been a pilot. He knew how to fly, but he couldn't get a job, and he was anguished about that. Then down the street, but he did talk to us. He was upstairs. Down the street were lawyers, black lawyers, but they didn't talk to us because they considered themselves a little better than us. So all of that was in the Black Belt, all of us oppressed. So we had to find different ways of getting past that. I used the environment, I had to, and my inner self, my spiritual self, to find a way, and it came through the arts. Thank God, because in arts you learn discipline, you learn focus, you learn that you're not the only thing, that you have to cooperate with other people, and that you're telling a story. And our story is magnificent. And so when I discovered the arts through dance first, my mother wanted me to play the piano, and I was I couldn't, it wasn't my heart. But when I heard drums, that was it.
A totally different.
And drumming, understand, is at home in the country, in the motherland, they played language. It wasn't just rhythm. The rhythm simulated pitch and tone of the language. And that's why they talked about talking drums, you understand? So when I heard that, it was like, oh, wow, this is me. And that's how I got out of Chicago, because I worked hard. After school, I was working and studying, paying my own way, and finally got out and joined the Catherine Dunham Company, which was like Alvin Ailey on steroids. Understand?
And I want to ask you a little bit about poems, because you got a few out and you've done some things, and I want to talk about A Better Life. A Better Life. The poem A Better Life.
Is that where we're down there?
Yes, God, we're talking about A Better Life.
It says, I left the blues behind. Okay? How do you leave blues behind? Because if you've experienced something that is giving you, going through that blues experience, it's going to be part of you always. But you leave the harshness behind. I kept the memories, so you won't do it again. You won't go through that again. The lessons learned. You learn every day is a lesson. School, life is a school. So you're learning every day. Then I left the pain behind. That's hard to do. Don't carry your pain with you, because it's not good. It tears you down. I left the pain behind. I kept the love. And coming out of Southside Chicago, in my family, there was 8 children. I was number 7. I experienced many things. We all do. But we have to let a lot of it go. But remember where you were. That's who you are. Even today on television, I've heard, even on The View, I think the sister used to be on I understand the name, Bill Cosby's show, the little girl. Raven Simone. Right. She was interviewed by Oprah, and she said, "I'm not African American, I'm American."
Did that drive your blood up or what?
It did, but the next,
I think it's a lot of people.
The next day, but she didn't know. She hasn't been educated. She doesn't know who she is. So the next day in the streets of New York, there's a big parade. Columbus Day. Oh, thousands of Italians out there saying, "I'm Italian American," yes. And, they're proud of it. Okay. A little while later, streets are full again, thousands of people, white people. "I'm Irish American, kiss me." And they're proud of being Irish American. So people have to ask themselves, why is it then when it comes to us, and I've seen it experienced many times, we don't want to say we're African American. All these other people are proud. Why are we proud? Check that out. Why are we proud? Why is it that in schools, our culture is not being taught? Our history. I have a book, Cornrows, and I went to a school. I was asked by one of the students, so she presented to her teacher. I went into the school. I do a slide presentation about my book, Cornrows. Part of it is about enslavement. We're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to show enslavement in these schools. In some schools, they've changed the curriculum so that slavery becomes a good thing. A time of they were teaching us at that time. You see, don't talk about the lynchings and all that, just the teaching. So if you don't know who you are, you will be anybody. You will try, because you're going for power. Who has the power? I'll be like them. But what kind of power do they have? Do they have spiritual power? No. They have financial power. They have power to tell you, I can buy this and I can buy you, and if you say that on television, I'm going to fire you. So don't talk about certain man who's under attack right now. Don't talk about so-and-so who is doing this now. Talk about what we say. That's what I want to fight.
And I want to talk about your TV show when we come back. Got a little bit more to talk about with Nana when we come back right after this.
Okay.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Of all the things you've done with your bike, donating it to Goodwill may be the most incredible of all. Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Live with a human for a while, and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she does strange tricks for no treats. But the one thing I will never, for the life of me, know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Well, we're winding down here on our show, but before we go, I want to talk to Nana Camille Yarbrough, who's a legend in her own right. And you had the opportunity to work with Nina Simone. And and I know that there's a documentary that's coming out, and it's already out, that reflects the life of Nina. And you were actually interviewed on that.
This was a time in our history when the activity of a spirit such as Nina Simone is very important to us, because she wrote, she sang, she spoke about our culture and our people in an effort to uplift them. It was my privilege to sit in theater at Aaron Davis Hall, I think it was called at that time, at Lincoln Center, and listen to her perform 2 of my songs. That was, I'm saying, wow, yeah, Nina, yeah. It was great, because she was a very special artist. But she performed something that I performed. She came to hear me doing some poetry at Lincoln Center also, and that was an honor. But we now are victims of placebo music culture. Meaning it's given to us to supposedly to make us feel better, to help, keep us going, but it does neither. It's superficial. It's like giving somebody some medicine to help them, but it's only sugar in the medicine. Sugar is sweet, but it gives you diabetes too. You see what I'm saying? So the culture that used to talk values, it used to, Curtis Mayfield and so many artists during the 60s had marvelous songs which give you a feeling of comfort, but they helped your spirit also. And today that's lacking. The music, where's our black music now? It doesn't even sound black anymore, because we're trying to fit in to somebody else's society. So I'm writing a book about growing up on the south side of Chicago and all of the culture that's involved, and it has to do with the hand-me-downs, environmental and the hand-me-down spiritual. And that spirituality is what we have to bring back now. We have to go in and love each other again, as our great ones loved us. And I have a song called Hand Me Down Love, which is going to be a part of my next performance.
Now, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong. You can find out more information about this at ancestorhouse.net, and there you can find out about all that's going on.
You can get me on Facebook. You can do that. Or CamilleYarbrough.com.
There you go.
That would be the best way. CamilleYarbrough.com. Yeah. The Gmail. It gets confusing.
Kind of ways, yeah.
CamilleYarbrough@gmail.
We can check you out on TV, Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
No, I just canceled my show because of the writing. Yeah, it was 16 years I did that show. So now I'm writing, and when you go home, you close the doors, and you cut off the phone if you can. You get off that internet, and you write. It's very deep.
You are very deep. And we want to thank you for coming. You got to come back.
Listen, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you.
I'm so glad.
Thank you so much.
All right, dear.
Nana Camille Yarbrough, our guest here. We want to tell you, you can find out more about her. You heard the website. You saw the website at the bottom of the screen. Please make sure that you check it out. And you can find out more about your history. Listen, it's important to know where you're going, but in order to know where you're going, you got to first know where you come from. And so we thank Nana Camille Yarbrough for coming and giving us a little history, a little insight, a little blood in the veins, all that good stuff right here on Perspectives. For all of us here on the set of Perspectives, I'm Darren Hyman. Until the next time we meet, we encourage you to stay safe. Most of all, share your perspective with somebody else you don't know. Just sharing your perspective, it just may make the difference in somebody else's life. Until next time we meet, take care.